Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Well, I say welcome back. Welcome to the Don J MMA podcast. We've not done this in a long time.
Yeah.
Don Dan risen from the dead. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good. I mean, every episode we seem to say, this is it, we're back, and then we never ever come back until like a month later. But hopefully now we're able to maybe get a bit of consistency, at least once a week, even though I've said that numerous times. But what about yourself? How's you? A lot of big news to talk about.
I'm good, man. I'm good. Listen, first of all, Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. We thought we'd talk about this first of all. He's already got a fight booked against Mike Tyson way later on in the year. That has not fallen through yet. That fight's still going to be happening. In the meantime, he's going to be going in there against Mike Perry, who, although he's not a boxer, and again, he is smaller than Jake Paul, obviously, as we all know, there's always context behind a Jake Paul win. It can never be a fair fight. Mike Perry is going to come and try and take Jake Paul's head off at the very least. I do think he'll try and drag Jake Paul into a dogfight. I don't think he's going to pull his punches. I don't think the fight's fixed. Um,
No.
ultimately, this is a bare knuckle boxer against a boxer in boxing, two different sports. Yeah, Jake Paul should win this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was rumored when, like last week, maybe week before, they'd spoke about it. Obviously, Jake Paul's meant to have that massive fight against Mike Tyson, but like you said, it has been postponed now to November. Still in the same stadium. I think Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, regardless of what you think about it, is going to be one of the biggest fights of all time. Like, I know I'm definitely going to watch it. Like, I don't know about yourself. I know a lot of people are going to tune in to watch Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. I feel like this is smart on Jake Paul's behalf to keep active because I mean this guy says he's got title aspirations and all that stuff. I don't know how. I don't really believe he's ever going to get close to winning a world title in boxing. That's just my opinion. But I feel like staying active and he's doing the right things about it. Mike Perry, I feel like Jake Paul's going to beat him, but I feel like it is a good test because Mike Perry is going to stick it on Jake Paul. Mike Perry's not going to go in there to lose. He's not being paid to take a dive. I feel like Mike Perry can offer him problems. I mean, we have seen Jake Paul kind of gas out. His cardio isn't the best. Mike Perry's definitely going to push that now. I know Mike Perry's having a lot of success in bare knuckle boxing. I feel like bare knuckle though and traditional boxing are very different, so I'm unsure how Mike Perry's style is really going to translate into traditional boxing. Also, let's not forget Jake Paul and Mike Perry have sparred ages ago. I don't know if you remember that, where Mike Perry came out and said like Jake Paul pretty much punched the fuck out of him. So I mean, that could be something to factor into it as well. The weight as well. Apparently, it is a cruiserweight and it is 8 rounds. Now I read just before Wilder fought Zhili Zhang that Jake Paul was weighing in around 230, which was
Yeah.
like way heavier than what Wilder weighed in to fight Zhili Zhang. So this is going to be a pretty big weight cut then for Jake Paul to go from that to be able to fight a cruiserweight. Also, Mike Perry's last fight he fought at 185 pounds. So, like you said, there are things that are put in place that do favour Jake Paul in these fights with his size, etc. He's going to be much bigger than Mike Perry. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to it. My prediction, early prediction right now, is a Jake Paul decision win. I don't know what yours is though.
Yeah, I think a Jake Paul decision win is looking likely, or maybe a late stoppage. Mike Perry's obviously got a different level of chin. Like obviously Mike
Yeah.
Perry's um, I feel like Mike Perry's style, what a lot of people don't realise is it's very reliant on in bare knuckle boxing. You can get in the clinch and you can actually work there a lot, and you can actually
Yeah.
wrestle your opponent. Whereas I feel like boxing referees, traditional boxing referees, are not going to let Mike Perry work there. So each time Jake Paul grabs hold of Mike Perry, I think the referee is going to be intervening a lot. I think it's going to be fought mainly at distance. And I just think this is going to be a fight that takes away all of Mike Perry's strengths, where I think he's going to be winging shots at Jake Paul. Don't get me wrong, he'll crack Jake Paul a few times. And especially at the start of the fight, I mean, we've seen before, like Anderson Silva, at times Tommy Fury, if you put Jake Paul on the back foot, he's nowhere near as capable as he is when he's on the front foot. And so maybe Mike Perry can make something happen. I would just love Mike Perry to drag Jake Paul into a dogfight, into a war, and beat him and just bloody him up. What I think will happen though, similarly to you, is a Jake Paul decision win. Either way, a big payday for Mike Perry.
Yeah, and it's a bit. I know Jake Paul, Mike Tyson is the bigger fight, obviously, but I'm more intrigued to see this actual fight itself. Like I'm more looking forward to the Mike Tyson Jake Paul whole spectacle. But I feel like this as a fight is going to be so much better because Mike Perry, like we've both said, is going to go in there to win. Not that Mike Tyson isn't, but Mike Perry at this stage in his career compared to Mike Tyson at the stage he's at in his career is going to be more capable, I think, to give Jake Paul more of a challenge.
Yeah. And yeah, Mike Perry's definitely going to turn up to win. Again, try and drag Jake Paul into a dogfight. Just before we move on, actually, I think it is interesting to talk about the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. It's been talked about 100,000 times. And what I say is nothing new when I say this. For me, it is a spectacle, and it is interesting. Obviously, we'll watch it. I don't know what Jake Paul gains from this, apart from more hate. Maybe, I guess, being hated to him isn't a bad thing as long as people know who he is. But let's just say Jake Paul flattens Mike Tyson. I mean, it's not going to go down well with the boxing community. I mean, anyone with an ounce of common sense knows that this fight really isn't good for Mike Tyson at the
Yeah.
age he's at. Right, he is literally a senior citizen. He has already had the fight postponed because he's had health problems and health complications. They're having to up the ounces in the gloves to suit Mike Tyson, stop him from getting less damage. I mean, this is just crazy. At one point, they were going to have headgear on. Like, for me, Jake Paul getting in there to spar Mike Tyson, maybe for charity, would have been pretty cool. But Jake Paul getting in there to actually fight Mike Tyson on a record that will go on their professional records. Like, I can't believe at the end of this year, on Mike Tyson's professional record, it's going to say a loss to
The
Jake
Jake
Paul
Paul.
that has the likes of Larry Holmes, Binks, he's fought Lennox Lewis, like all these crazy names, Evander Holyfield, and a loss to Jake Paul on there. I mean, that is crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean by what is it like. Is it beneficial for Jake Paul or not? I like you also said. I feel like he just loves the attention, and realistically, he's not going to be in a bigger fight than this. I know the KSI fight's big, but Mike Perry, like, Mike Tyson, like, generations know who this guy is. Like, people's grandparents will be sitting to watch this fight with him. Like, everybody knows who Mike Tyson is. And when it's all said and done, really, the way I look at it is Jake Paul, people might not really look at the circumstances, but Jake Paul will be able to say to people, I beat Mike Tyson. And there it is on the resume. I feel like that's the thing for him. For at the end of the day, he can go, well, I beat Mike Tyson, especially from a guy who started boxing when he beat Deji, which was how many years ago?
7,
You know what I
6.
mean? Yeah, but I feel like it's going to be a massive payday for Mike Tyson. I don't know what his situation is like with money. I'm sure he's doing
Yeah.
just fine. This is going to be a massive payday for him. Maybe that's why he's doing it. But yeah, for Jake Paul, I mean, you get the chance to say you've beat Mike Tyson. You're going to fight, like we said, in probably like top 3 biggest fights of all time. And you're going to walk away with probably a viral KO, if we're being honest. I think he's going to really hurt Mike Tyson in there. I honestly feel like Jake Paul's going to stop him in the first round. I don't know what you
Yeah.
think.
I feel like an early stoppage is possible, but I do have a feeling that this fight might be. I hate saying Jake Paul fights are fixed because they're not fixed, but I could see this being an Anderson Silva Chael Sonnen fight where they're not really
Mm,
going full pelt. I just have a feeling that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul might pull the punches in this fight. But then also, I feel like, look, I'm sure Mike Tyson getting hit off that guy would not be pleasant still, even at his age right now. When I
yeah.
see him on the path, he can still crack. He can still knock Jake Paul out. Make no mistake about it. Maybe not in 20-ounce gloves or whatever the ounce is. I think that will be a bit of a difference. But I still think Mike Tyson, look, he's experienced in heavyweight fights. Jake Paul has never fought at heavyweight. He's far more experienced as an amateur, far more experienced as a professional. And I think if Mike Tyson was like in his 40s, late, out of his prime, he'd still beat Jake Paul. But now his body has fallen apart. He was completely washed, lads, in his last professional fight that was 20 years ago. Yes, I'll repeat that again. 20 years ago, he lost to. Who was his last loss? I don't know.
Yeah, I
That's
can't
what I'm trying
remember.
to. Against someone he admittedly said he shouldn't have lost to. His best days were behind him more than 20 years ago. So 20 years later, I think he's got grandkids, he's got kids, he's having health complications, postponing the fight. These aren't good signs for me. But like you said, in fairness, with it being on Netflix, which is something the UFC could only dream of, and other fight promotions could only dream of, what this might be is a fight that I feel like is going to like change the fight game in terms of pay per view and
I
how
think so.
fights. Yeah, and I think this is going to be a new era. So in that kind of aspect, I'm really excited to see how this changes the fight game.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, just to finish up on it, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I feel like I know you said there might be like Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen. I feel like if Jake Paul doesn't knock him out or like at least have his corner throw the towel in from just punching him pillar to post, I feel like that's just as bad as Jake Paul being knocked out by him or losing. I feel like Jake Paul has to knock him out, and it has to be early. He can't take Mike Tyson like 6 rounds. I mean, I think that just ruins Jake Paul if he does that.
Yeah, and like honestly, if Mike Tyson knocked him out, oh my god, the
Yeah,
meme, the berating, his career literally is over in the sport of boxing. If that happens, this is a terrible. That's what I'm saying. I mean, in the area that there's really not much to gain for Jake Paul apart from a load of money. I mean, this is a lose-lose fight because if he beats Mike Tyson by KO, everyone's going to say you beat a senior citizen. If he loses to Mike Tyson, you'll never, ever, ever hear the end of it, ever. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But yeah, I thought that'd be just a quickly interesting thing to touch over. Now, since me and you have been gone, we've had some good pay per views gone past us. We had some great, great fights lined up in June. I mean, Robert Whittaker, Hamzat Chimaev was a great fight. Keyword was. UFC 303's Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor was my most anticipated fight. I don't care what anybody says. My most anticipated fight of the year. None of those fights are happening now.
yeah.
With Hill, Ulberg fall through. I mean, on paper, Anthony Smith has had to step in against Carlos Ulberg. Jamal Hill, who was Jamal Hill meant to fight?
He was meant to fight Khalil Roundtree, then he popped for PEDs, I think. Then
Yeah,
Khalil Roundtree pulled out, Carlos Ulberg stepped in, then Jamal Hill pulled out, and now Anthony Smith has stepped in. I'm sure we're going to cover all the pullouts, but Jamal Hill has ruined everything. Dominic Reyes obviously came off a big win there. Realistically, he should have been the one to fight Anthony Smith next. And then for some reason, Jamal Hill has just completely ruined the light heavyweight division, pulled out, and now Dominic Reyes is going to get who? Who does he get?
uh,
Probably Jamal Hill and gets KO'd. So he's definitely ruined everything then if that's the case.
yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. A Reyes title run is pending. You heard it here first. You
I
heard it
think.
here first. I Reyes 2.0. So Hamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker. This is probably the second biggest pullout before we get to McGregor Chandler.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, there was talk of Hamzat Chimaev's career being over fully a few days ago because he keeps getting a recurring illness. They were saying. I saw the articles, I saw the reports that he was getting a recurring illness from weight cuts. I mean, there was all sorts of speculation. And then yesterday, it kind of turned out to be food poisoning. Now, I am pretty sure I've had some sort of food poisoning in the past. It's not pleasant at all. And I certainly myself, me being me, would, yeah, definitely not like to fight someone while
Yeah.
I've got like and I'm throwing up. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
But I don't know. This doesn't look good on him. I've got to be honest. It doesn't look good on him.
Yeah.
Would he have? Is this a lack of preparation? Is this a lack of people around him? You know, should he have got a nutritionist? Does he have a nutritionist? I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, obviously everyone expected to be much worse from the photos that came out that showed him like lying in a hospital bed, etc. But Dana White came out and said something that I thought was pretty interesting, talking on the Hamzat thing. Obviously, Hamzat currently cannot get a visa into America. He just can't do it. I don't know why. I think it's because of a person he's linked to. He cannot get into America. That's why we're only seeing Hamza like once a year, and it's on these Abu Dhabi cards because the guy cannot travel to the States at the minute. And Dana White said that it's hard for them to know what's actually going on with Hamza because they actually can't get him with the doctors that the UFC would have. So Dana White was saying it's really hard to understand what actually is going on with Hamzat Chimaev at the minute. But yeah, it definitely did look a lot worse than food poisoning, to be honest. Especially when people were talking about his career potentially being over. Also, I mean, we'll have to factor in Bo Nickel has basically cured everything for Hamzat Chimaev with the don't get sick. Bo Nickel there with real motivation there, like fuck David Goggins and Jordan Peterson. Bo Nickel is the man. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not good for Hamzat. His last fight, obviously, again, I don't really think it was a good showing for him against Usman. Obviously, that round one was amazing. I'm pretty sure we actually were live together watching that fight. Hamzat absolutely dominated Usman in the first round, but it was kind of like the same thing we've seen in the welterweight division, and we thought it might have been fixed when he moved to middleweight, and that was the complete nosedive in cardio. It just seems like the guy just doesn't have great cardio. I don't know whether that's just the way Conor doesn't have good cardio, but he carries a lot of power. I don't know what's going on with Hamzat Chimaev, but yeah, at the minute he is looking to be like a Zabit, the biggest what if the UFC have had.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's two fights in a row now that
Yeah,
have fallen. You know, it's a shame because he went from being, fighting twice in a week, against a middleweight and a welterweight at one point in his career. Um, he was so active, he was so dominant, and when he's fresh, he might be the best fighter on earth. And I'm not even joking. Um, the way, like you said, he just easily took Usman down. Kamaru Usman is known as one of the best wrestlers in welterweight history, and he absolutely had his way with Usman when he was fresh. And in the third round, he took Usman down again. To
yeah,
be fair to him, and he did win that fight. Obviously, it looked not as good on him because Usman was coming in on 2 weeks' notice. And I think if that was a 5 rounder, Usman, even without a training camp, looked better conditioned. And that wasn't a good sign. It wasn't a 5 round fight, though. It was a 3 round fight. And Hamzat Chimaev got the win there. And heading into this fight with Robert Whittaker, I think all this talk of, Hamzat Chimaev's cardio was a big talking point going into it. If Robert Whittaker can just survive the first 2 rounds, he'll probably be okay. And that just kind of seems to be the baseline, easy way of looking at a Hamzat fight. When he comes back, is he going to have the same issues? If he does, I guess he just doesn't have the best cardio. Maybe it isn't health related. Maybe he just can't go the distance in fights. Maybe he's just, like you said, a Conor McGregor that either gets an early finish or kind of fades out.
yeah. I mean, this Robert Whittaker fight was definitely going to be. I know he's fought Usman, and Usman's a point for point great, but obviously there was different circumstances with it being short notice for Usman and up a weight class. I feel like this Robert Whittaker fight was really, really going to show how good Hamzat was or how good Hamzat is. Personally, I was picking Robert Whittaker to beat Hamzat Chimaev. I don't know about you. Who did you have winning?
Um, I had a feeling Hamzat Chimaev was going to win, but like again, 5 rounds, man. Your 5 rounds with Robert Whittaker is not an easy fight, and if you haven't got the cardio for it, he's probably just going to coast for the first 2 rounds and then let you have it rounds 3, 4, and 5. And I just think that's how the fight would have gone. I think he would have had a rocky start. I think maybe Hamzat would have had the power to hurt him.
Definitely.
Maybe, and yeah, he is still way better with his grappling than Robert Whittaker even. But I feel like Robert Whittaker would have been able to survive it out and then pull it through rounds 3, 4, and 5. And I actually think he would have stopped Hamzat for the first time in his career in round 5. I think he would have been that gassed out. I could see like a 1-2 head kick combination just knocking him out cold. And the crowd, Saudi Arabia crowd, just going silent. Not that they ever make noise anyway, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think Robert Whittaker would have won that fight. And he has got a new opponent now in Ikram Aliskerov, who, man, he has everything to gain here,
Yeah.
nothing to lose.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, like, because I went through the rankings when Hamzat pulled out, and I was looking through who could potentially fight him, and the one that really stuck out to me was Brendan Allen. I don't know, maybe if he's injured or what, but like, how is no one in the top 15 saying yes to this fight that they then had to go to Ikram? I don't know. I don't know if they did offer it to everybody, but like, regardless though, Ikram. What'd you say?
They offered it to Bo Nickel.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy was in the mountains apparently. But yeah, Ikram is a tough fight for Robert Whittaker. I mean, Ikram is so well rounded. Plus, he carries some serious KO power. And like Robert Whittaker, I don't know how you feel about this, but in my opinion, he has looked pretty chinny in his last few performances. I don't know. I mean, I am picking Whittaker to beat him just because he's so much more experienced at the elite level than what Ikram is. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Ikram knocks out Robert Whittaker.
Um, for me, I feel like similar with Benoit Saint Denis and Dustin Poirier. I know Benoit Saint Denis had a staph infection. I could see this being a real tough first round for Rob. Robert Whittaker did say that he'd never heard of Ikram Aliskerov before, and I believe him. He wasn't saying that just to shit on Ikram Aliskerov. I think he just genuinely didn't know who he was. I don't think he watches the sport in his kind of free time. Um, this fight's a really difficult fight for him. But like with Dustin Poirier, if he can get past this, it seems like when Dustin Poirier beat Benoit Saint Denis, you know, it put him in a good way with the UFC, if that kind of makes sense. I kind of
Yeah,
said this in one of. I think Dana White and the UFC appreciate when a guy will take on and put his high rank contendership on the line. I mean, if Robert Whittaker loses this fight, I mean, he'll never get another title shot. He really won't.
no,
But this fight, I think in the post-fight interviews, we'll see Dana White being very grateful. We'll see him calling Robert Whittaker legendary. It's similar to how we did with Dustin Poirier. And I think after Sean Strickland, he'll get a title shot. Or maybe they'll do him versus Sean Strickland for the number one contender spot. And although Sean deserves a title shot and wants to weigh out, I'd love to see that fight. I would love to see that fight.
yeah,
But this is going to be a really difficult stylistic matchup for Robert Whittaker. I just think his movement, his takedown defense, and of course, mind you, Ikram's coming off a camp. It's not like Ikram
yeah. I was
won't be
literally gonna
conditioned.
say that.
Yeah. But what he will have to do is cut weight again. He was already in the weight cutting process, I do believe, recently. And we saw with Tony Ferguson against Justin Gaethje, two completely different fights, but having
Yeah, so sorry about the jump cut there. My computer froze. But yeah, we are just talking about Ikram versus Robert Whittaker. We'll just give our predictions here quickly. Obviously, the event is on Saturday in Saudi Arabia. I think this is going to be the start of Saudi Arabia taking over combat sports. The Middle East in particular, anyway. I know I'm kind of jumping off topic here, but even the next card that's in the Middle East, which is the Abu Dhabi Fight Night card, which is Corey Sandhagen versus Umar, is arguably better than some pay-per-view main cards we've got this year. You've got Umar, Corey Sandhagen, Figueiredo, Chito Vera. You've got Nick Diaz, Vicente Luque. How Nick Diaz is fighting in the Middle East instead of fighting on an American show is beyond me for the UFC. But I feel like similarly with boxing, we're gonna start to see the Saudi or the Middle East take over. But yeah, sorry for my prediction. I'm going for Robert Whittaker to beat Ikram by split decision.
Yeah, I think Robert Whittaker will beat Ikram by unanimous decision. I think it's going to be a fairly competitive fight at the start, but I think Robert Whittaker will slowly teach Ikram Alaskerov a lesson. But I could see a bit of a banana skin here for Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, I feel the only I do think Whittaker will beat him comfortably, but I feel like because it's in Saudi Arabia
Yeah.
and with Ikram, I feel like they're gonna try and pull a split decision here. Nonetheless, though, Robert Whittaker gets the win. Next up, we're gonna talk about the devastating news: Conor McGregor out of his fight against Michael Chandler at UFC 303. This is shit. As a McGregor fan, the guy who really got me into watching the sport, I was so looking forward to seeing the return of McGregor. We're gonna have to wait a while. I still think we are gonna see this fight. I know a lot of people are wondering if it's gonna happen or if it's not. I do think we are definitely still gonna see it. When, I'm not too sure. My prediction will be the Sphere event. I feel like Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler will headline that. What's your opinion on the whole pull-out situation? Do you think Conor's in rehab actually, or do you think he's injured?
I do think he's injured. I don't think
Yeah,
he's in
same.
rehab. I think if Conor McGregor was in rehab, we would know for fact. It wouldn't be a speculation. Um, Paparazzi, everyone would be all over it if Conor McGregor was in rehab. A lot of people forget how big of a name Conor McGregor actually is and how well known he is. Everyone knows who this guy is. So if Conor McGregor was in rehab, we would know he 100% is in rehab. There'd be photos of him,
Yeah,
literally. There would just be stuff. People there would leak it out. It would be known publicly. So I think he's injured. I just think, Conor McGregor of old would have probably carried on and gone in there. The Conor McGregor that just fought Dustin Poirier the third time 3 years ago would have gone in there anyway. But what you've got to understand is Conor McGregor broke his leg in half last time. So on his mind, he knows if he goes in there injured and it ends up being a big injury again, and he has to wait out another 2 years or another 3 years, that is the end of his career. He's not at a stage anymore where he's 24 against Max Holloway and he can go in there with a torn ACL and stuff like that. He's or whatever it is. He had a bad injury against Holloway
yeah.
anyway.
Something to do with his knee.
Yeah, he can't do that anymore. He has got to look after his body. And I think even if he wanted to go in there, I do think his team would have probably intervened this time and said, look, you're coming off a huge injury. It's probably better to fully recover and go back in there again. In his sparring videos, he looked really good. He looked really, really good. Um, a lot of people, and I think this is the mistake people are making going into the Conor McGregor fight with Chandler, was that you know, Conor McGregor is washed, that, he's not capable of performing anymore at the elite level. But his only losses, although he hasn't been active, are to Habib and Dustin Poirier. Those guys, Habib's one of the best fighters ever, literally, and Dustin Poirier just fought Islam Makhachev for a world title and is one of the greatest lightweights of all time. So by no means has Conor McGregor lost to scrubs. So I think this fight will show when it does happen, hopefully one day. I think this fight will show how superior Conor is technically to Michael Chandler, and I think he will stop Michael Chandler. I truly believe that. I just can't overlook how much better he is than Michael. He just is better. He just is better in not every area. Wrestling, definitely not, but he's a far better mixed martial artist. And Michael Chandler would have been going into this fight at 38.
Yeah.
38 years old, definitely going to be 38 and a half by the time this fight does roll around. So he's not been super active. It's not Conor McGregor going in there against a prime athlete. I think when he does return, I think we will see something special. But when he pulled out, man, and it got replaced with Yuri and Alex Pereira, I still wasn't happy. I mean, Yuri and Alex Pereira, I love that fight. I could not wait to see Conor McGregor. And I don't care what people say. Call me a Conor McGregor glazer. I'm like Don Dada. We're from over here, near where Conor McGregor's from. You
Yeah.
know, we especially got into MMA because of Conor McGregor. So whenever he fights, it's an awesome time. The buzz around the countries, is awesome, you know.
Yeah.
And like a Conor McGregor pay-per-view. I don't care if people call me a glazer. I don't care what anybody says. You all would have watched it. You all would have watched it. You all would have loved seeing him back in there, whether he loses or lost or won, whatever. And I was very, very fucking disappointed that we didn't get to see this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like though, I know you said that maybe it was his team that didn't let Conor fight. Now, I got tickets to go to the press conference, so I got up and I seen the news on the day. Bearing in mind on the day, but then Ariel Helwani said that Michael Chandler knew the day before, so I don't know why they would have left it till the fucking morning of the event to tell us. But anyway, I think Conor still would have fought. I think the reason Conor had to pull out is because it was a visible injury, whether that be the guy's in crutches, whether that be there's a cut, whether that be, I don't know, there's severe bruising. I think Conor would have fought regardless because he lives off that. He'll fight anyone, anytime, anywhere. So I feel like it had to be something where, say he showed up at the press conference, Michael Chandler or the audience would know he's not 100% ready to compete. Also, I feel like his team, I feel like Conor is at that stage now where you're right, his team will have to, he'll have to listen to his team with the point of like Conor McGregor is this like worldwide superstar now. He's got multiple brands built off his name. If he keeps losing these fights, his name just diminishes and it affects everything else. He won't be in movies. He won't be able to be in these big business opportunities if he keeps losing because it just tarnishes his name. I was fucking gutted that this fight wasn't going to happen. I was so looking forward to it. Yuri obviously is replacing Yuri and Alex is replacing Conor. It's not the same, but I don't know what your opinion is. I'd much rather see Conor versus Chandler, by the way. But I feel like UFC 303 as a whole card now is much better than what we had before all this replacement shite.
Without a doubt, like without not even a debate, 100%. I mean, obviously, the UFC and Dana White would deny this and say we don't know what we're talking about. I'm sure, but yeah, the UFC don't pad Conor McGregor cards.
No.
It's a well-known, unless it's UFC. Is it 200? UFC 200? Was he even on that? Was he meant to be on
He
it?
was meant to be, and then they moved him. That was him and Diaz too. That was UF. He was meant to headline 200 with Diaz, and then they moved him to 202 with Diaz for the rematch.
Yeah, but usually anyway, they will never pad a Conor McGregor card because the name alone will sell the card. People will watch all the way through and watch the lower ranked fighters go at it. And I don't necessarily disagree with it. It's just a fact. That's what the UFC will do. I'm not trying to say anything negative about it. But now he's not on the card and it is Yuri and Alex Pereira. That, again, especially Alex Pereira, he is becoming a huge name in combat sports, a huge name. Probably on his way to becoming the biggest star and the face of the company, besides Conor McGregor, of course, when he's competing. This is a potential fight he can lose. It is a potential fight he can lose. It's a massive risk, but this is why everyone loves Alex Pereira. You know, he's bringing that kickboxing attitude of staying active, you know, not resting too much. I think he said after this fight he wants to have a little break,
Till
and that
December.
break
Yeah.
5 months. Usually, a break for a champion's like a year. You know what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
this is why we all love Alex Pereira, and I actually think going in there against guys that have clear grappling advantages over him is actually better on short notice because it doesn't give him time to kind of learn, you know, how he defends takedowns, learn how they can find that openings. And I actually think maybe these kinds of fights suit Alex Pereira. Like if it was Magomed Ankalaev, I actually think a short notice fight would be great for Alex Pereira
Yeah,
against
so do
Magomed.
I.
But obviously with preparation, I do think Magomed Ankalaev beats him off a full camp.
Mm.
I really, really do. Maybe not. not for definite, but I do think Ankalaev beats him. Apparently, Ankalaev didn't want it. I don't know if the fight was offered to him. He, for some reason, thinks that he can decide where and when Alex Pereira should fight him for the world title. But that's for a completely different discussion. It's irritating, though, to say the least.
Yeah.
But Yuri Prohaska and Alex Pereira, two samurais, two dogs. Lopez versus Ortega. I mean, that is a great fight. That's the fight of the night. I can tell you that for certain.
Yeah.
And then, on paper, Anthony Smith versus Carlos Ulberg. I think Ulberg might annihilate Smith's chin, but you never know. This card as a whole is much better. Still gutted we didn't get to see the McGregor Chandler fight, but yeah, what's your thoughts on the new fights that have been added just to finish up? And what's your prediction for the main event?
Yeah, so I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, I think Conor not being in this fight is going to work out better because I feel like obviously he wasn't 100% ready to fight, so what's the point in having him come back and fight injured again? We've seen it last time, and he's been out for 3 years ever since. I feel like if they do put him on the Sphere card, I feel like that just makes this fight like a million times better. Like the Sphere looks mental, so I don't know what the UFC is gonna do for it. I feel like having Conor headline that will just be. I know it's Mexican Independence Day and Conor's got like nothing to do with that, but I feel like it's just a bigger spectacle, to be honest. Now I think 303 is better. A fight that you missed out though, that a lot of people aren't talking about, that I feel like I don't think it's gonna be fight of the night or anything, is MVP versus Ian Gary. Like, how is that
Oh,
not the co-main event?
I mean, it's not. I think is it the first,
Yeah,
is it the first main card fight?
yeah.
Yeah, that would be a really, really technical fight in my opinion. And I can't wait to see how that goes down. But it's just for me, Ortega and Lopez is going to be a brawl. It's going to be an absolute dogfight. And if it's not a dogfight, I'll eat my own ear. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, if that fight, I'll be really, really surprised. I think Ortega might even have better jiu-jitsu than Lopez. That's a very real possibility. And I think we're going to see some good transitions in this fight. And not in that kind of way. We don't want to see any like flirtatious transitions. That's not the only reason I'm trying to watch the fight. I mean,
Exposed.
we're going to see good grappling transitions. Again, not in that way. Nor did it. I mean, good jiu-jitsu transitions. And then I think it's going to be a brawl on the feet. Both of them have good power. Both of them have good chins. That is going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, I mean, this card is great. Just to finish off, we'll go through our predictions. I'll go through mine. So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. I'm gonna go Ian Gary to beat MVP by decision. What's the other fight in between? I think it's a women's fight. I can't even remember who's on it, but we'll skip that one. You've got Carlos Ulberg's gonna KO Anthony Smith in the second round. Diego Lopez is gonna KO Brian Ortega in the first round. He's gonna stop him. And Yuri Prohaska is going to KO Alex in round number one. Those are my predictions.
You're Pereira.
Yeah. I backed Yuri last time, so I have to stick with him this time.
Yeah. I actually think, I don't know. I think Michael Venom Page is going to beat Ian Gary. I don't know why. I just think he's going to beat Ian Gary. I might change my prediction towards close to the time. I think he's going to beat Ian Gary by a decision after really badly hurting him in the second or third round. I think Carlos Ulberg is going to decimate Anthony Smith's chin into the next dimension. I think he's going to flatten him in the first round with something. And then I actually think Ortega got wobbled, didn't he, quite bad in his last, like his chin all is starting to fade.
Yeah, he got hurt against Yair Rodriguez, and then Yair fucked up the finish on the ground. That's why I think Lopez, we obviously seen him on UFC 300. We know he carries serious power in his hands now. I think he's going to be able to hurt Ortega, and when Ortega goes down, he's going to be able to follow him to the ground because he's also got a great ground game himself, and be able to just ground and pound finish Ortega in round one.
Yeah, I think, again, this is going to be a pretty bad. Like, there's going to be a bloodbath. I think there's going to be a real big war. I think both of them are going to land like serious damage on each other in the first round. Like you said, I see Ortega getting wobbled in the first, dropped. I think he survives. I think we see some great transitions. So a really good showcase of jiu-jitsu, elite level jiu-jitsu in the UFC. And I think a lot of people have forgot how good Ortega's jiu-jitsu is. So if he is fresh, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how well he does with it. But yeah, I'm taking Ortega. I'm taking Lopez to beat Ortega
Right.
in the
Okay.
second round by TKO. But this is going to be a war. And then to finish up, Alex Pereira versus Yuri. I'm taking Pereira this time in the first round.
Well, there you have it. There's our early predictions. I'm sure. I mean, I'm not gonna promise anything, but we'll hopefully have a few more podcasts, and we'll hopefully have like a podcast even before the event to give our
Yeah.
actual predictions closer to the time. But yeah, that's gonna do us for today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. We're hopefully try and get one in once a week if possible. Leave comments below what you want, topics you want us to talk about, ideas, if you want us to go through our top 5 of all time, stuff like that. Just let us know in the comments below. And yeah, we'll see you again in the next one.
See you all.